Hello and welcome back to Lesson 9-4, Part 2. Today we are going to finish up with the special cases in multiplication. As I mentioned in the Part 1 video, today we're going to be looking at finding the difference of squares. So what this is going to look like is if you are given something like a plus b times a minus b, okay? So in other words, I have my first term and my second term are the same in the two binomials. The only difference would be the sign changes in between the two. This is going to produce what we call a difference of squares. And I'm going to show you why that works, okay? So if I have a plus b times a minus b, and we use the FOIL method, I'm going to have a times a, which is a squared. A times a negative b is minus ab. B times a is going to give me a positive ab. And b times a negative b is going to give me a negative b squared. So when I simplify this, I end up with a squared. A negative ab and a positive ab, well, these are going to give me 0, so those are going to cancel out, and I'm going to be left with a negative b squared, which is exactly what we're given up here. So another example of difference of squares could be something like 3x minus 1 and 3x plus 1. It would be 5 minus, or we'll say 5 plus y times 5 minus y. So if you notice, the first terms are the same in both binomials, and the second terms are the same number, but the sign in between the two are what actually is the difference between them. So this is how I know I'm going to produce a difference or subtraction of two squares. And just like the previous Part 1 video, if you don't want to have to memorize this or don't want to try it, you can still use FOIL or distribution, but this is going to help you in the long run because this is like a shortcut. So if we go ahead and look at example 3, Part A, I have p to the 4th minus 8 times the quantity of p to the 4th plus 8. So again, I have my p to the 4th in both terms, or both factors, and I have 8 in both factors. The only difference is that I have a negative here and a positive here. So this is kind of a red flag to me that says that I can go ahead and use one of those special patterns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by identifying that p to the 4th is my a value and 8 is my b value. So because I recognize these as being the same binomial, they're just different because of my signs in the middle, I know that I can take that first term, or a, and square that. So I have p to the 4th, and I'm going to square that, and then I'm going to subtract my second term, which in this case is 8, and then I'll square that. So when I simplify p to the 4th raised to the second power, remember we're going to multiply these, so this becomes p to the 8th minus 64. And now I'm done, and I had a lot less work than if I were to FOIL all of this out. So now if we look at Part B, we have c squared plus 8 times c squared minus 8. Again, I see that I have two binomials that are similar. The only difference is that one is a positive and one is a negative. So at that point in time, I can go ahead and say that the first term, or c squared, is my a value. The second term is going to be my b value. So I have my first term, or c squared squared, minus my second term, which is 8, and we're going to square that. So c squared squared is actually going to give me c to the 4th power minus 64. And now Part C looks kind of complicated, but it's really not any different than the problems from up above. But again, notice that I have the same terms in both binomials. They're only separated, or they're only different because I have a positive and a negative. So my 9v cubed is going to be a, w to the 4th is going to be b. So with that, I'm going to apply my difference of squares, and I see that I have 9v cubed, and I'm going to raise this to the second power, and from that I'm going to subtract my w to the fourth raised to the second power. And again, I'm going to simplify. So 9v cubed raised to the second power, I distribute that squared onto both, which gives me 81v to the sixth minus w to the fourth raised to the second power gives me w to the eighth. And here I am done. Please let me know if you have any questions on section 9.4. Otherwise, have a great day.